There are moments in life that don't get written down in history books. Moments that happen in small places, between ordinary people, that somehow mean more than all the headlines and all the fame combined. This is one of those moments. A night in a Texas roadhouse in the late 1970s. A night when Waylon Jennings walked through a door and proved that sometimes the biggest thing a man can do is sit down with a stranger and remind them they're not alone. Picture it with me. A small bar on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that's been there forever. The kind of place your daddy probably knew about, and his daddy before him. Warm amber lights hanging low from the ceiling, casting soft shadows across worn wooden floors that had seen 1,000 boots, 1,000 dances, 1,000 nights just like this one. Neon beer signs buzzing in the windows, cigarette smoke hanging heavy in the air, curling up toward the rafters like memories trying to find their way out. It's a weeknight, maybe a Tuesday, maybe a Wednesday. The kind of night when working folks stop in for a cold one before heading home. Not crowded, but not empty either. Just full enough to feel alive. In the corner, a little two-piece band is finishing up a song. Guitar and fiddle. Nothing fancy. Just honest music played by men who know how to make a melody breathe. The last notes fade out. Glasses clink at the bar. Laughter rises and falls in waves. Women are gathered near the bartender. Hair done up nice, lipstick fresh, wearing their best country dresses. They're drinking and talking and laughing the way women do when they've had a long week and earned the right to let loose a little. Men stand around the pool table in the back, cue sticks in hand, nursing long-neck bottles, telling stories they've told 100 times before. It's a good night. A normal night. The kind of night where nothing particularly special is supposed to happen. And then the door opens. Slow. Not a dramatic swing, not a grand entrance, just a quiet push, and the sound of boot heels on wood. Nobody announces him. There's no spotlight, no fanfare, but the whole bar feels it. You know how sometimes you can feel a shift in the air? The way a room changes when someone walks in who carries something with them? That's what happens now. The women at the bar turn first, one by one. Their conversations stop mid-sentence. Smiles freeze. Eyes widen just a little. The men at the pool table straighten up without even realizing it. The bartender looks up from the glass he's wiping and mutters under his breath, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Well, I'll be damned. He actually showed. Waylon Jennings steps into the light. Black leather vest over a dark shirt, jeans worn in all the right places, hair curled at the ends, falling just past his shoulders. A face that looks like it's lived a few lifetimes. Not movie star handsome. Better than that. Real. Weathered. The kind of face that's seen heartbreak and whiskey and long roads and came out the other side still standing. But it's not his appearance that takes the room. It's his presence. The way he moves. Calm. Steady. Like a man who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. He doesn't try to own the room. He doesn't have to. The room just shifts around him, the way water moves around a stone in a river. The women at the bar light up. They're smiling now, whispering to each other, smoothing their hair, straightening their dresses. One of them waves, trying to catch his eye. Another nudges her friend and giggles. They're already making space at the bar, assuming he'll come over. Because why wouldn't he? He's Waylon Jennings. And they're available. And isn't that how these stories usually go? But Waylon doesn't even look at them. He stops mid-step, just freezes for a second. And his eyes lock onto something in the corner of the room. A small table, 2 chairs, one of them empty. And sitting in the other chair, alone, is a woman. She's older than the party crowd at the bar. Not old, but older. The kind of age that comes with living, not just years. Her hands are wrapped around a glass, fingers clasped tight like she's holding onto it for dear life. Her shoulders are hunched forward just a little. Her eyes are red and swollen, the kind of red that doesn't come from one cry, that comes from crying for a long time. Days, weeks, maybe months. There's a wedding ring on her finger, still shining, still there. The bar noise fades into the background. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the conversations. All of it becomes distant, because in this moment, all Waylon sees is her. And somehow, without knowing her, without ever meeting her, he recognizes something. A kind of pain, a kind of loneliness, the kind you can't fake and can't hide, no matter how hard you try. Without a word to anyone else, without acknowledging the women at the bar, or the men watching him, or the bartender who's still staring, Waylon walks straight toward her table. The room notices. Conversations stop. Heads turn. People watch, confused, curious. This isn't what they expected. This isn't the Waylon Jennings story they thought they were about to witness. He reaches her table and stops. Stands there for just a moment, looking down at her with something soft in his eyes. Then slowly, he pulls out the empty chair across from her. The legs scrape against the wood floor. He sits down, quiet and deliberate, and tips his head slightly in that old cowboy way that men used to greet women before the world got loud and forgot how to be gentle. She looks up at him. Her eyes are wide, shocked, maybe even a little scared. She tries to wipe her face quickly, embarrassed that someone saw her like this, especially him. And then Waylon speaks. His voice is low, steady, the kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to be heard. "Ma'am, nobody should hurt alone in a place full of people." 6 words. That's all it takes. 6 words, and her entire face crumbles. Not in a bad way, in a release way, like she's been holding everything together for so long and someone finally gave her permission to let go. She tries to apologize, stammering, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I shouldn't be here, But Waylon raises a hand gently. Not to stop her, just to tell her it's okay. To tell her she doesn't need to explain. But she does anyway. Because sometimes you need to say it out loud. Sometimes you need someone to hear it. Her voice cracks as the words come out. Her husband passed away 6 months ago. 31 years they were married. 31 years of building a life together. And tonight would have been their anniversary. They used to come to this bar together every year since 1954. It was their place, their tradition, their little corner of the world where they could just be together, away from everything else. That's why she's here, alone, because she didn't know where else to go, because staying home felt like drowning, because maybe, just maybe, if she came here, she'd feel close to him again. The table goes quiet. Waylon doesn't interrupt. He doesn't offer empty platitudes or try to fix it. He just listens, really listens. The way a man listens when he understands that some pain doesn't need solutions, it just needs witness. When she finishes, when the words run out and all that's left is silence, Waylon takes a deep breath. He leans back slightly in his chair, and then he says something she'll remember for the rest of her life. "Love like that don't end, darlin'. It just changes shape." She stares at him, tears streaming down her face now, but different tears. Not grief tears. Something softer. Something like hope. Waylon stands up slowly. He reaches out and touches her shoulder, just for a second. Respectful. Gentle. The way a good man comforts a woman who's hurting. Then he turns and walks toward the little stage where the band had been playing earlier. The bar's dead silent now. Every eye in the place is on him. The women at the bar have stopped waving. The men at the pool table have put down their cues. Even the bartender has stopped moving, just standing there with his rag in his hand, watching. Waylon steps up onto the small wooden platform. He whispers something to the 2-piece band, and without a word they step back, giving him the whole stage. He pulls up a stool, sits down, and rests his guitar across his knee. The room waits. He looks back at the woman in the corner, catches her eye, holds it for just a moment. Then he leans into the microphone and says, quiet but clear, "This one's for anyone who ever loved somebody enough to miss 'em." And then he starts to play. The opening chords of Storms Never Last fill the bar, slow, tender, every note deliberate. And when Waylon starts to sing, his voice is low and steady, carrying every ounce of pain and beauty that only a man who's lived can deliver. The room doesn't move. Nobody speaks. Nobody clinks a glass. Nobody shifts in their seat. Women at the bar start wiping their eyes. Men lower their drinks, staring at the floor or the ceiling, or anywhere but at each other, because eye contact right now would break something. And the widow in the corner, the woman who came here to be close to a ghost, sits with her hands over her mouth crying softly, but not hiding any more. Because for the first time in 6 months someone understands. Someone sees her. Someone sang her pain back to her and told her it was okay to feel it. Waylon doesn't perform the song. He doesn't showboat. He just sings it honest, like a prayer, like a conversation between him and every broken heart in that room. When the last note fades, when his fingers leave the strings and the silence settles back in, the bar stays quiet. For 3 full seconds, nobody moves, and then the applause starts. But it's not bar applause. It's not drunk cheering or hollering. It's real applause, the kind that says thank you, the kind that says you changed something in us tonight. Waylon sets the guitar down gently. He stands, and instead of soaking in the moment, instead of staying on stage, he walks back to her table. He reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a guitar pick, hands it to her. She takes it, her hands shaking, staring at it like it's the most precious thing she's ever held. He leans in close, just enough so only she can hear, and says, "Storms don't last, sweetheart. You prove that just by being here." She breaks again. But this time it's not grief. It's release. It's healing. It's the kind of cry that lets you breathe again after holding your breath for too long. Waylon tips his hat to her. Just a small nod. Then he turns and walks back toward the door. No goodbyes, no waves, no encore. Just quiet boots on wood, the same way he came in. The door closes behind him, and the bar sits in stunned silence for another long moment before the noise slowly starts to come back. Conversations pick up, glasses clink again. But it's different now, softer, like everyone just witnessed something sacred, and nobody wants to be the first one to break the spell. The bartender shakes his head, a small smile on his face, and mutters to no one in particular, "That's the most Waylon thing I ever saw." And the story spreads, slowly, quietly, the way the best stories always do, not in newspapers or on the radio, just person to person, across bar stools and back porches and truck stop diners. The night Waylon Jennings walked into a bar full of people and chose to sit with the one woman who needed him most. The night he didn't perform for the crowd. He played for a widow on her anniversary. The night he reminded a room full of strangers that the biggest thing a man can do is see someone's pain and sit down beside it. Because that's what legends are made of. Not the hits, not the fame, not the sold-out arenas, but the small moments, the quiet kindness, the nights when nobody's watching except the people who need it most. That's the outlaw way. That's the Waylon way. And that's why, decades later, we're still telling this story. But to understand why that moment in that bar meant so much, you have to understand who Waylon Jennings really was. Waylon Arnold Jennings was born June 15, 1937, in Littlefield, Texas. Dirt poor. Started playing guitar at 8. Performing on radio at 12. By the time most kids were figuring out high school, Waylon was already working honky-tonks and living the kind of life that breaks most men. He played bass for Buddy Holly in 1959. And on February 3rd that year, Waylon was supposed to be on the plane that crashed and killed Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper. He gave up his seat at the last minute. For the rest of his life, he carried that guilt. That weight never leaves a man. It shapes him. In the 1970s, Waylon refused to let Nashville smooth him out. He fought to produce his own records, play with his own band, and sound like himself. That fight helped birth Outlaw Country. Him, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson. Men who said no to the machine and made music on their own terms. He had the hits. Mamas Don't Let Your Babies. Luckenbach, Texas. Good-Hearted Woman. But Waylon was more than chart positions. He battled cocaine addiction in the 1980s and nearly lost everything. But he got clean, got sober, and kept making music. He married Jessie Coulter in 1969, and that marriage lasted 33 years until he died on February 13, 2002, at age 64. Here's what matters. Waylon could have walked into that roadhouse and owned it, played to the crowd, signed autographs, made it about him. That's what stars do. But he didn't. He saw a woman hurting and chose her, chose the quiet moment over the loud one, chose empathy over ego. That's not something fame teaches you. That's something you carry inside, a quiet strength, a deep decency forged in hard times that never breaks. So when you remember Waylon Jennings, remember the music, remember the outlaw, but also remember the man who walked into a bar, saw someone in pain, and chose kindness. Remember that the greatest thing any of us can do is see someone hurting and sit down beside them. That's the Waylon way, and that's a legacy worth holding on to.